And over now to politics, where we're inching closer to the presidential debates. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Polls show a pretty tight race between the two candidates leading up to Monday. Clinton holds a lead of 3 points nationally when looking at an average of polls.
In battleground states, however, Trump leads by 6 points in Iowa and Georgia. The two are tied in Colorado, and Clinton maintains a lead of 7 points in Virginia. With us now is senior writer for Politico, Jake Sherman. He joins me from Politico's newsroom in Arlington, Virginia. So, Jake, let's get your reaction off the top to these latest poll numbers.
I think what you see is you definitely see a tightening at the state level. The national level, as you mentioned, she's opened up a 7-point lead in some places. But the fact remains that Clinton has a firewall in places like New Hampshire, Virginia. She's up in most surveys in Colorado, and she's even making North Carolina a race. We'll see after what happens after the debates and after these incidents of violence in North Carolina, where the polls shake out. But I think you're going to see a lot more clarity come, midweek next week after the debates. I think that's when a lot of things settle. This is the first head-to-head appearance by these two candidates ever. So I think the electorate, as many as 100 million people, some TV executives say, will tune into this debate, and it will have huge impacts on the polls in the coming weeks.
Jake, this afternoon, the Cincinnati Enquirer editorial board endorsed Clinton today after noting that they've supported the Republican candidate for almost a century. And they wrote this. They said, this is not a traditional race, and these are not traditional times. Do voters in Ohio really care about this kind of an endorsement? Can it make a difference in a race like this?
Probably not. I don't think many people are looking. I don't think many people are looking at the editorial page of their local paper. And I hate to say this in a newsroom.
Why? Oh man, that's such depressing news.
This coming from the print guy.
I know. The Dallas Morning News had an editorial similar to the Cincinnati Enquirer, and I think the same reaction came through. It's not going to make a difference. But go on, tell us why. Tell me why.
And the union leader in New Hampshire broke with many years, I think, also a century tradition, and endorsed. I think Gary Johnson definitely didn't endorse Donald Trump. Listen, I think the overall narrative, the drumbeat of that kind of talk over, a sustained period of several months, newspapers and kind of nonpartisan figures saying that Donald Trump is unfit and Hillary Clinton is not great, but is at least fit for office and is able to carry out the duties. I think that narrative has an effect on the race. I don't think that many people are going to consult their editorial page as much as I wish they would for voting advice as they start to cast ballots.
Jake, right now, one state that virtually everyone is watching, in part because of the protests there, is North Carolina. And there's a New York Times Siena College poll out right now that shows Trump and Clinton tied in that state. Now, that's in a three-way race with Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson, who, of course, will be on the ballot. So this is a pretty good poll. Race and policing, those are key issues there right now. Which party, which candidate fares better on these topics?
I don't know which one fares better, but I think that Donald Trump's solution, what he said his solution to the violence would be, is a wider spread use of stop and frisk policies, which was declared unconstitutional and stopped in New York. Donald Trump has criticized Hillary Clinton for how she's responded to the incident. But if you look at the numbers, voter registration is skyrocketing in heavily Democratic pockets in North Carolina. People are getting early ballots. People are registering to vote in North Carolina at a pace with which Democrats kind of never expected. But this is going to be a tight state. Almost the entire congressional delegation in Washington, D.C. from North Carolina are Republicans. But I'm not exactly sure how this is going to play out. I think it's too early to say. Donald Trump has branded himself the law and order candidate. So we'll see if that resonates in the coming weeks as people start early voting. And they're already early voting in North Carolina.
And I'm curious about Johnson, too. It's worth noting he's polling at 11% in North Carolina. What kind of impact do you think the third party will have on this race, particularly in North Carolina?
So I think nationally what you're seeing is if you look at the kind of four-way race between Clinton, Trump, Johnson, and Jill Stein, what you're seeing is basically a repeat of 1992, but the third-party vote is split into two instead of when Ross Perot had a big chunk of the vote against Bill Clinton in 1992. So I think that in some states it benefits Clinton, in some states it hurts her. But it's definitely an impact. But I think you'll see those numbers tick down after the debates, and which will basically solidify Clinton and Trump as the two choices for Americans going to the ballot box this fall.
Jake, you mentioned Donald Trump's reference recently to stop and frisk, a policy that, when stopped and frisked by a federal judge, was deemed unconstitutional. Do you think that comment, that support for that policy, is going to significantly undermine his recent outreach to the African American community?
The outreach to the African American community is, most Republicans will privately concede, way too little too late. He's at 8% among African Americans right now, up from 2%, which is a big jump in a small amount of time. But it seems that I think most casual observers of this election and in-depth observers indicate that this is not a block of votes that Donald Trump really has a chance of solidifying or making significant inroads in. His African American support seems to be, most people say, more aimed at persuadable suburban white voters who think that his handling of race issues is unbecoming and kind of dangerous.
And we should say, while Jake doesn't believe in newspaper endorsements in this campaign, he does do a great playbook that people should subscribe to. I really enjoy getting that, Jake. Well done. Jake Sherman.
Thank you. Politico.com/playbook.
There's your plug for the day, my friend. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jake.
Thank you.